What's good, YouTube? And I'm back with another video. Today's video, I just wanted to do a simple Q&A because I noticed over the last couple weeks people have the same questions. People want to know certain stuff. I've been seeing it all in my comments. So right here, I'm gonna lay it all out and I'm gonna just put it all in this video. And then if there's more questions you got, leave them in the comment section below and I'll drop a part 2 to it. But before we get into this video, if you're new to the channel, I'm Trey. I work on ships. That's what I do. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, like, share. I greatly appreciate the support. Now let's get right into the video. So right here, I got my notebook full of questions, my handy dandy notebook that y'all see in a lot of videos. And one of the main questions that I always get is how's the work on the ship and what do you do? Well, for each department, it is different. So I work in the deck department. So my job might be different from, of course, the steward and the engine. So I'm gonna give you a brief understanding of what each department does. So if you're in the steward department, if you're entry level, you're washing dishes, helping the cooks prep food, things of that nature. If you're a chief cook, you're cooking every day. That's your job. You're gonna cook lunch and you're gonna cook dinner. If you're a steward, you only cook breakfast, but you manage the steward department. You go into the deck department and you go into the OSs and the ABs. OSs are ordinary seamen and they are day workers. Only do day work. They work alongside with the ABs. You have two type of ABs. You have AB watch standers and you have AB maintenance workers. AB watch standers, they do watch. That's what I do. I do primarily watch. As AB day workers do the same work as basically as an OS, but they just get paid a lot more to do it and they don't stand watch. And that's pretty much it. And then you go into the engine department. You start off as a wiper or oiler, whatever. You do soundings, you're cleaning up oil, things of that nature. Your normal routine, just maintenance and cleaning up. You're assisting other engineers. That's pretty much what your job entails of. Now back into the deck department, of course I stand watch, but when I do go out to do my overtime, I paint, I chip rust, wire will drill the metal surfaces. We basically preserve the ship. To make a long story short, and either in the video before this or after this, you will see in one of my daily vlogs like what it is I exactly do in a day. So yeah. And the next question is like the golden ticket. Everybody wants to know this question. Internet on the ship. Do you have internet on the ship? Now this question all depends on the ship that you get on, the company you're working for at the time. Some ships I have been on, they have internet. Most of them do not. I would say it just depends. I've been on a ship that has internet. I've been on a ship like right now where I don't, but I'm so close to land that I don't need internet. I have decent phone service. So it just depends. And just get your mind ready for a ship that doesn't have it, because you will be disconnected from like the world for maybe an extended amount of time. So yes and no. And that's just the untold truth of the internet on the ship. Some ships do provide computers where you can email, you can get on Facebook, things of that nature. Like my ship doesn't have internet service for the crew, but you can go downstairs and use the computer to email or anything of that nature. So another question I get a lot of is, what do you do to pass the time? So what I do to pass the time is read books. Of course, I make these YouTube videos, which takes up a lot of time. If you haven't already liked this video, like the video. But I listen to podcasts. Really it. I don't really do too much. I used to work out, but it takes a lot of energy, and out here you need to preserve your energy. So I don't work out like I used to. You can work out here. We do have books on here that you can read. I mean, you can bring your video game. I didn't bring my video game this time, but usually I'll bring my video game. That's really all you're gonna be doing. So that's how I pass my time. When you don't have the internet, time goes by way faster. Believe it or not, you will get used to it. Next question is, how's the food? Now the food, this is also an interesting question because the food all depends on the cook and the steward that you have at the time. They make the meal menus, so sometimes you'll have a good steward, sometimes you will have a shitty steward, sometimes you have a good cook, sometimes you have a shitty cook. It all depends. Now I've been on ships, luckily, where most of the cooks and stewards have been pretty decent, but I have heard stories of like people having shitty cooks and stewards. It all depends on if the person takes their job serious. And a lot of people do take pride in their work, but some of them don't. So it honestly, it just depends on the steward or the cook that you have. Depending on what type of person you are, if you're a vegan type of person, if you're a hamburger, chicken tenders type of person, it just depends on what you like eating. A cook might cook good, but they might not cook the things you like. It all depends. You know, I'm a real picky eater, so sometimes I'll just eat peanut butter and jelly, or you know, I don't really complain about the food. Honestly, it's not that bad, not to me. So, next question that I was getting a lot is, does the ship/company give you coveralls to work in, or do you buy your own? Now, I do bring my own clothes 90% of the time. Probably, matter of fact, 100% of the time, I do bring my own clothes. Now, some companies will give you coveralls, some companies will not. And that's why, because I have been on ships where the company does not provide you coveralls and you have to work in what you've brought. So I always work in long sleeve shirts. I don't give a damn how hot it is. I always work in long sleeve shirts, because the last thing you want to do is be on deck, you rub up against some type of chemical or something, and it's on your skin. So I always wear long sleeve shirts. I have pants. I wear Carhartt pants. That's what I usually pack. Now, certain companies will give you coveralls, and if they provide coveralls, I'll work in their coveralls. So I save my own damn clothes. So make sure you bring your own clothes. You know, don't ever depend on another company or whoever to give you coveralls, because that's what you've seen on YouTube or Facebook, Sailor Gang, whatever. Make sure you bring your own clothes and then go from there. I have also gotten on ships where they give you their own boots. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you bring your own stuff, because the last thing you want to do is get out here and you don't have something. So yes, some companies provide coveralls, but some of them do not. So make sure you bring your own clothes. Make sure your clothes are comfortable, they fit, they're not too loose, they don't get caught on anything. Just make sure you have your own stuff. Make sure you're squared away. Next question is, how often are you in port, and if so, for how long? So that also depends on the ship, the run. It depends on a lot of different stuff. Longest I've probably been in port was maybe 3 to 4 days. Maybe 3 to 4 days. You have to remember that the longer that the ship is in port, the more that it's costing the company money. It costs for that ship to be there. So they're going to be trying to get in and out. The ship that I'm on now, 24 hours. That's it. We're in and we're out. So it just depends. And yes, you are able to get off. They've been a lot stricter with the COVID protocols and stuff like that now. So it's not too much of that going on like how I used to, because if you get off, you have to wear your mask for 14 days once you get back to the ship. So a lot of people aren't really getting off like they used to. People used to get off in flocks, trying to go and do stuff. But now people aren't getting off because they just simply don't want to wear the mask when they get back on the ship. So yeah, port all depends on the ship. Container ships, you might be in port just a little bit longer than other ships. Boat carriers, you might be in port less than other ships. Tankers, it takes a little time, but you might be in port maybe a day or two. It all depends on the ship. Do you have TV and cable? My past 2 ships, because I've been in America and I was on the coast, the coastal runs. Yes, my ships have had TV and cable, and fortunately Wi-Fi. The last ship that I was on had Wi-Fi, not this one, but both ships did have TV and cable. It's quite a few ships out there. If you plan on getting on a ship in America and they run on the coastal runs, like from New York to Florida or Florida to Texas, more than likely you're going to have a TV and cable, but it isn't guaranteed. So yes, I have TV and cable on this ship. You might have TV and cable. You'll usually just find out when you get there. Some ships have TVs, but they don't have cable, so that you can hook your laptop up or your game up to it and watch movies that you bring. So it literally all depends on the company, the ship, and where it's located. Sometimes you don't have cable because you just simply don't have cable service. So another question I was getting was, what do you do if there's a fire or an emergency? Fire and emergency, You're not calling 911, you're putting it out. This is what your training is for. This is why we take those STCW courses, basic firefighting, the basic first aid, things of that nature. You're the fire department on here. You're the first aid service on here. You have to go and fight the fire. Sometimes you might be 100, 200 miles out, might be 60 miles out, 50 miles out at sea. You're not calling the fire department. You're going to put the fire out. Some ships have these, well, a lot of ships, probably all of them now have these CO2 rooms, CO2 when there's a fire. But if the area that you're fighting the fire doesn't have CO2 holes or whatever they call it, you're going in and you're fighting the fire like as if you're a fireman. But that all comes with your training, and you'll learn more about that as you get into the industry. Next question is, how long are you on the ship and how long are you at home? And that's a great question, because that all depends if you're union or non-union. Now, for people that work MSC, I cannot speak for MSC employees because I don't know. Now, I have heard that MSC you usually work like 7-8 months straight, some crazy shit, but I cannot speak. I don't know for sure, so I have to ask somebody that works for MSC. But as for SIU, it all depends on what you pick. If you pick a job that's a 30-day job, you're more than likely just going to be on there for 30 days. 60-day job, you got 60, 90, and 120, which is a rota. It just depends on what you choose. Now, sometimes in weird circumstances, your relief get COVID or your relief doesn't want to come, you might do an extra 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. You know, it's not rare that it happens, but it does happen sometimes. And when you get ready to go home, you sit at home as long as you want until you're ready to go back to work. That's just how it is. Most people sit at home 2 months. I sit at home for however long I feel like sitting at home. Because when I come out here, I stack. I don't spend nothing unless it's on bills. So when I go home, I'm comfortable, you know. And that's for the SIU. Like I said, I cannot speak for MSC. I cannot speak for any privately owned chartered company. I don't know. As for the SIU, you stay home as long as you want. You go to work for as long as you want. You can get off a ship in the same day, go to the hall and pick up another job. And that's just how the SIU is. Next question. What happens if you need to leave the ship because of family emergency? Now, this is a pretty interesting question, and believe it or not, depending on your position, where the ship is located at the time, you might not be able to get off. And that's just me being 100% honest. I've known people to come out here, family members die, and they can't go home till like the next month, 2 months. It just, the ship, sometimes the ship can't sail. Like I'm a 8B watch standard. I can't just up and leave because there's 3 watches. So if I leave, that leaves the other 2 guys, and now you're missing a person on watch. I mean, it's just a lot that plays into people just wanting to up and leave. I mean, you can get in big trouble for just trying to up and leave. You know, sometimes the captain can get you out of there, but that's a tough one. That's a tough one. If there's a family emergency, there's a good chance you might not be able to leave. It's a good chance. Some of these ports do not even let you walk through their refinery. They don't let you leave. It's a lot that goes into that question. I have seen people be able to, you know, hop off the ship, catch a flight, and leave. That's in rare case scenarios. But most of the time, people usually just weather out the storm. They can't leave. I've known people to also, you know, their child been born out here and they weren't at home for it. So can you leave? Yeah, you could possibly leave, but it is a good chance that you won't be able to leave. So I kind of want you to understand that, like, this is not a job that you can just go home because you don't feel like doing the work today, or quit and just walk off. You know, it don't work like that out here. So, and that's just me giving you the honest truth. Last question for this video is, should you go to a maritime academy or should I go through SIU? If you go through a maritime academy, it is going to be 4 years before you make a dime. Just putting it out there. If you go to a maritime academy, it's going to be 4 years before you make a dime. And you might have shit ton of student loans when you get out of maritime college, but you will come out as an officer and you'll have a degree. So if you're looking to go that route, go that route. If you want your degree, you want to become an officer, go that route. But you go through the SIU and Haas pipe it from the very bottom and just work your way up. That's what I recommend. I don't recommend academies to nobody. I'd rather you, for those 4 years, work your ass off and just work your way to the top, have a shit ton of money and no student loans, then go to an academy where you might possibly have student loans. And then when you get out, you're making a good amount of money, but now you're paying off student loans. It just, to me, it just don't make sense. But it's all up to you. With that being said, this is the end of this video. If you guys have more questions, please leave it below in the comment section. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody that you think that this might help. And I will see you in the next video.